Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning a Moment into a Movement. I am your host, Jay Love, and I represent the Justice for Gerard Movement. Gerard is my son who passed away. Actually, a year ago on this day, we were having his service. But he was wrongfully convicted of a crime that he didn't do, innocent, and he went to prison for that crime. And because of the journey I went through with him, and grew through with him, and all the other people that I met while on that journey, we created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement. And the reason why we created this platform was to, our goal and our mission every day is to educate and to motivate people to get involved about wrongful convictions, the need to eliminate them, to stop them. And so we come here on Fridays to talk about that and also other injustices. But we also want to talk about solutions, and we also want to inspire um, our listeners to, to keep doing the work. And so that's why we also are here. Our mission statement is to bring awareness to the wrongful conviction of Gerard and all others who are wrongly convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, and medically frail in our community, to inspire, organize, and educate all communities about the need to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns of the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. So that's why we're here. Um, Again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to bring on our panel and then our awesome speaker because we're so excited about the Love Gathering that's going to happen next week. And so we want to keep that excitement and that energy going. So I'm going to bring on first Revatia. Hi, Revatia.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. And you know what, Jay? I started thinking when it comes to turning a moment into a movement, what I learned was that you turned away from the problem and really focused on solutions. And you did not back down. You did not back down in your belief and hope that there was a solution, that there were answers, that you were going to find a way, and to be involved in that and then actually find solutions and connect with people has just been an amazing journey. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of that journey. I am pleased to be a part of, I call it TMM, turning a moment into a movement. Pleased to be a part of so many other connections also that help to continue this work. And that's with my work with Macomb, Michigan Coalition of Human Rights, and also um, with G100 Oneness and Wisdom, women all over the world. I am the Michigan chair with Transforming Love Community, where we transform lives, and just with the Choice Zone as the founder, and that's helping people to transform their life on an individual basis, and some collectively and with businesses. So I'm excited. I'm excited that the time is right now for us to demonstrate transformation in the field of justice. As we know that justice is ours. So Jay, thank you.
Thank you, Revertia. I don't know if something happened to the sound, but thank you, Revertia.
Yeah,
I see.
something happened.
Okay.
I don't
I
know where
see
I
you
went.
driving.
Yeah,
So we're
I'm
going
not
to,
going anywhere, but yeah, keep going. I'll get back. Yeah,
okay.
here we go.
All right. All right. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Attorney Matt.
Well, hello, hello, my sisters in the struggle. I love you. So,
Love you
so,
too.
so good to see the both of y'all again. Once again, Attorney Hugo J. Mack, Esquire, doctor, I might add, here for you. And as I've told you week in and week out, unlike the 40,000 others of my colleagues, I did not parachute from heaven to be with you today, Jay Love and Reverend Tia. Through the grace of God and Jesus Christ, I've come up from hell to be with you today. I understand what it means to be wrongfully convicted, to pay a debt you not owe, to be scorned, ridiculed, humiliated, bearing a burden of a society that claims to be one of second chance. But really, if you got the wrong paint job and your exchequers are, shall we say, funny, you will not be a person of second chance. You will be a person of zero chance. Zero chance. And you know, Jay Love, when I look at the struggles going on around the world, and particularly in my own country, when I look at a man twice indicted, all right, on criminal offenses. When I look at a man having to pay out $5 million for sexually assaulting and violating a woman. When I look at a man facing no fewer than 12 future charges. And I realize everybody is legally presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. But that is a courtroom concept. That is not a public concept. How many times have we seen people, particularly men and women of color, that have been presumed guilty from the get-go, all right, before they even got to court? I sent you some information on a man by the name of Abner Louima, J Love. I don't know if you had a chance to open up your email on it or not. But in 1997, this man was beaten brutally and sodomized, I might add, sodomized with a broken broomstick. A man of color, all right? Sodomized. Now, and the police who did it to him said, if you say anything about this, we'll kill you. Well, what happened was that police officer was arrested and served time in the penitentiary. The other day, got released early, cut 6 years off his sentence early, okay? Now, and says, well, I apologize to Abner Louima. And Abner Louima said, I'm a Christian, I forgive. Well, God bless Abner Louima. I respect that. But I also have to say, we as Black folks are the most forgiving people in the world, all right? You see? In terms of Breonna Taylor, we want to forgive. In terms of the killing that happened down in Mother Emanuel Church, remember, we want to forgive. In terms of the young man, I believe in Minnesota, that was shot by that police officer who said she thought it was a taser she was going for, but was a gun, we want to forgive. And God bless us who forgive. But I would like to see us get to the point one day, Jay Love, where some people start respecting and giving us dignity. All right. And I don't see that because, as I say, I don't see anybody else with 2 indictments that gets to keep their passport, no travel restrictions, no tether, no bond, no nothing, and can go wherever they want to go. And the only reason the restriction is there saying you can't talk to the co-defendant is because the judge said it. The judge said it. The prosecutor and pretrial release wasn't saying nothing. And having been in this business a scant 40 years or so, I've never seen that happen with one of my defendants, one of my clients. So I'm here to bring those hypocrisies to the attention of the public and to keep on fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves as long as God gives me life and breath. So we continue on. My practice primarily representing poor and indigent people, majority of them women of color, who have fallen through the safety net. There is no social program to help them find a job, find transportation, to be able to try to keep their family together, try to get education, you see, to try to get a home. It's only lawyers like myself who go out there and fight day in and day out to allow these women, primarily women of color, to keep dignity and respect. So I'm proud to be here to fight and be a voice for the wrongfully convicted and the overly convicted. In 2020, I ran for Washington County prosecutor because I know the changes that need to happen in terms of administration of justice. So while we did not get the most votes, certainly our message was out there and we had a big impact on that election. So proud to be here with you, Jay Love. Looking forward to the Love Gathering coming up very, very shortly now. So that is what I'm about, and I say God bless you and God bless the movement. Here we go.
Okay.
If you find yourself on Trouble Boulevard, push, pull, drag that hoopity to Mack Street. Mack Street. Park in my virtual underground garage. And when you're there, call the Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. And Jay Love, in order to give the audience an opportunity to write down this pertinent information, I'd like you to please excuse me while I do the boogaloo. And for the first time, for the listening audience, Mr. and Mrs. America Ships at Sea, I have a brand new jazz called the Janus. Reverend Tia, Pulp Fiction, Batman. And the Boogaloo. So, Jay Love, I want you to understand, this is all for real. And Mr. and Miss America, all the ships at sea, pay attention. All people, particularly Black people of good conscience. Jay Love, let me tell you something. If they don't want to win, tell them don't come in. Stay outside with the rest, suffering legal constipation. I say this, Jay Love, I say this. They've tried the rest, now come with the best. And by the way, for all you haters out there, I know who you are. Most of y'all Black. Contacting Jay Love, putting notes all on that woman car and everything, trying to email her, having her kick me off the show. I know who you are. I know who you, Travis, Kadisha. I know it's you. I know it's you. So you see, the problem is, Jay Love, these haters, they don't want the message to go out. But you know, Jay Love, I'm going to tell them like my late cousin Bernie tell them. I ain't scared of none of y'all. So I want them to understand that, Jay Love. But Jay Love, I must say, should you ever be tempted to do the unthinkable, to kick me off the show, Jay Love, I can just plead the words of the late, great Otis Redding. Jay Love?
Yes.
I've been loving y'all much too long to stop now, Jay Love. Please, Jay Love, please don't make me stop now. Jay Love, if you listen to the haters, I know you'll get tired and you want to be free in me. But Jay Love, you in the movement becomes too strong. Y'all become a habit to me, Jay Love. So I've been loving y'all far too long. Please, Jay Love, please don't make me stop now. So Jay Love, I want you to understand something. With me, they may ask you, Jay Love, why that man get on that show all the time and talking about he endorsed that? Do he really be meaning that stuff? I got a message for all y'all. You damn straight I mean it. Dr. Hugo J. Mack Esquire, and I fully endorse this announcement. So Jay Love, yes. I want you to understand. I want you to understand right now. This endorsement and this message is brought to you by Dr. Hugo J. Mack Esquire, the one true king of Russia, Scotland, and Lower Harlem. That I say, I love you. God bless you. Let's go on and do this.
Okay. Well, we got New York in the house today, Attorney Mack.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Beulah, for the no copyright infringement intended. Oh, thank you so much. Hi, Dwayne. You muted, Dwayne.
What about now?
You good.
How you doing, Jay Love? Attorney Mack. Reverend Tia. You guys all right?
You're a panel member now, so you get to come on and introduce yourself.
Yes. I'm Dwayne Brooks. I was wrongly incarcerated for 35 years. Just got out on April 25th of this year. And I'm looking forward to this healing the wounds of injustice and restoring hope. I like the topic.
Yes.
Yes.
So Reverend Tia pop it back in. So yeah, you guys, I am so glad that you all are here. Here's Reverend Tia. Reverend Tia, hi, you back. I want to bring on our guest so she can introduce herself, and then we're gonna have this conversation about healing the wounds of injustice.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Richardson.
Hi, everyone.
What's up, Shari?
It's a pleasure to meet some folks that I haven't met yet, Reverend Tia and Attorney Mack. Pleasure to meet you. Dwayne Brooks, good to see you, brother, again.
What's up, Shari?
A little bit about me. I'm a professor at Medgar Evers College here in Brooklyn, New York. I also own my own mental health practice. A little bit of background about me is I'm a social worker by trade. I've worked a lot with kids, both in, the juvenile justice system as well as foster care. I've also worked with homeless men who are mentally ill, but also chemically addicted as well. And like I said, and now I'm a professor at Medgar Evers College, but I also have my own psychotherapy practice where I see a variety of different people. But I also work very closely with an organization that is working towards reintegrating people that have been incarcerated or are facing incarceration to do mental health services for them as well. When you were talking about the Abner Louima story, Attorney Mack, yeah, I remember that because I remember the headlines every single day, the court cases, like it was a really hot topic here in New York. And here now recently, there is a recent case where a young man, 20 years old, just stabbed a guy on the subway, I think it was last week, and in self-defense. And the DA actually wanted him to be remanded without bail. But because his family came out and his attorney basically brought up the whole fact of that the reason why the DA was even asking for this was probably because of his skin color, the judge actually decided to release him on his own recognizance. And so, there is this tone or this attitude towards people of color within the so-called justice system that exists even now. And that has to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with in a variety of different areas. Like, it's not just one thing that's going to actually do it. So actually, Attorney Mack, I actually was listening to when you was talking about how you ran for office, and I think that there has to be a variety of different approaches that are employed when it comes to eradicating this issue, and trying to level the playing field. Like, there can't just be one approach to dealing with this,
Right.
So I really appreciate you, bringing that up. But that's me. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to the Love Gathering next week and
Yes.
just meeting everyone in person, that I haven't already met in person, and seeing those who I have met in person again. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I want everyone to know that this Miss Dr. Shari Richardson is our speaker next Saturday. So you guys make sure you're there to hear her. She's very awesome. So I thought about this subject as we were getting close to the love gathering, because for the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Dwayne, and he's been telling his story, and we really been digging in. And we're going to get back to it too as well, Dwayne. But we really been digging in about his wrongful convictions and wrongful convictions, period. And so I thought it was important with us, heading into the love gathering, that we start talking a little bit about also healing, because the love gathering is a day that we come together to heal as much as we can, just taking a moment to take a breath, to understand why we're here, and our purpose for the things that we are doing. And so when I was thinking about this topic about healing the wounds and about what we do, it's hard to, you can't heal what you do not reveal. And so, people sometimes often, talk about, because we're talking about heavy subjects. And some people don't like that we having these conversations. Like, you guys are always talking, but what are you doing? What are you doing? But people, you can't heal what you will not reveal. So you can't skip over the conversations, and you can't skip over what happened. But I think once we talk about what happened, and it takes away of you really being a victim, because you're taking your power back. You're able to express your own story in your own words, and not somebody else's narrative about what happened to you. And so I think that a part of the healing journey has a lot to do with talking, and being in a space where you can adjust, free space where you can express things that's bothering you, and also have a space to help you navigate those problems and move forward to healing. So go ahead, Ramatia. If you could turn your mic on.
Yeah, I am. I think I turned it on and off twice. Yes, I'm so glad you said that, because I think that when there has been a protocol when people come together in activism, and how we come together, and there have been expectations that have been rehearsed through the decades. And usually there's a dinner, there's speakers, there's um, dressing up, and I'm not saying that's all bad, because I'm not. What I am saying is that this, to me, is the first time I've seen where we're saying we're coming together so that those who are in the movement can heal. Because if we're looking at our communities healing, we got to look at how do we heal individually before we can heal collectively. What are the answers for us for our own healing on an individual basis? Because we have to face the conflict and the injustice that we do to ourselves. And the funny thing was that when Jay first said, this is a time for us to heal, and we're not going to be doing anything. And there were some people who felt extremely uncomfortable with that concept because we're so used to action. And so I'm so excited and grateful that we can come together and say, okay, we are here, and it's more about our beingness, and we're going to come together, and we're not just having rhetoric. We're listening. We're listening to heal. We're listening to one another to heal. We're allowing the sounds to help make us whole. And I've really set for myself, I've set this intention that it's a day of wholeness. And at the end of the day, people can say and affirm, I felt relieved. I felt refreshed. I felt a sense of renewal. And that's what I'm excited about. And so I'm so happy that everyone here has said, yes, this is a great idea. I'm joining in.
Yeah. Thanks, Reverend Tia. Okay. Anybody can jump in at any time.
Well, if I can just push my way to the front of the line.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Attorney Matt.
You know, Jay Love, I cannot begin to express to you and all the other members here what this means to me. See, because, you know, as my brother here can testify to, when you pay a debt you don't owe, okay, that not just robs you of your physicality, it threatens your soul, your soul, you know, the very insides, you know. I've heard some people define your soul as your mind, your will, your emotions. Well, all those were challenged with me, and I still, to this day, and I can be very transparent, still deal with it. These years later, I still deal with it. You know, I can be just sitting, just reading and enjoying myself. And then I remember what's happened to me and what continues to happen to me, you know? And as a man, particularly as a Black man, that is a hell of a mojo to deal with, see? And you know, in this culture, men are taught, don't show no emotion. And whatever you do, don't cry. You know, don't, you know, you better hold that in, you know, because I know when I was in a penitentiary, if they caught you crying, you got a world of trouble on your hands, a world of trouble. Okay. That is a predator magnet. Tears are predator magnets. Okay. So what I'm saying is that I just have to thank God that he helped me through my mother, my late mother, and people that loved me to help and nurture me, because there really wasn't nowhere for me to go. You know, the quote unquote friends I had all disappeared like, you know, mist on a hot summer morning. They evaporated. And it was only a few people that stuck with me through the Odyssey. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not making myself out as the biggest victim in the world, but I'm not going to let anybody try to minimize what happened to me and what has happened to so many other people. You know, there are victims. There's called the wrongfully convicted. There are victims, the overly convicted. And we are as every much a victim as somebody who have their house broken into, somebody got their car stolen, somebody got carjacked, somebody got pistol whipped, some poor unfortunate woman that got, you know, violated on her way to work, some child coming from school. And what has really bothered me is so many people want to talk about the rights of victims, but they refuse to acknowledge wrongfully and overly convicted people as victims. See, because it doesn't suit their narrative. That's what I had to deal with in my candidacy for Washtenaw County prosecutor. They wanted to talk about women assault victims and the elderly abuse, children, you know, victims, but they refuse to acknowledge that category of victim. And that's one reason I ran for prosecutor, to bring that to the forefront. you know, and I'm still not patting myself on the back. Please don't misunderstand. But without my candidacy, the subject never came up. The subject never came up of the wrongfully convicted, and even the people that are rightfully convicted. The sentence that we carry coming out of a penitentiary is a collateral sentence. In Michigan, there are several jobs you can't get, licenses you can't get, places you can't live, jobs you can't have. You understand? Education you cannot get because of that. You know, you cannot sit on a jury in the state of Michigan if you've got a criminal justice experience. Now think about that. Think about that. Our Constitution system of laws say we are judged by a group of our peers. So it doesn't matter if since coming out from the penitentiary, I won 5 Nobel Peace Prizes, okay? It doesn't matter if I've given billions of dollars in philanthropy all over the world. It doesn't matter if I got a cure for cancer. Guess what? My black behind is still not sitting on no jury because of my criminal justice experience. So when you tell people that, I mean, you know, I'm a man with some resources, but what about the person coming out barely have a high school education, that has no background, no support? Think about them. Think about them. So if this happened to me and people like me, think about the other people coming out that don't have the advantages I had going in and coming out. So, you know, I'm so glad, Jay Love, we're doing this because it's therapy for me. This whole thing is therapy for me to help me in my healing process. And I'm a big enough man to admit, I still hurt. I still hurt.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dwayne.
Yeah, it's a few things I want to comment on. You were saying how we have to reveal things to start healing. And that's a very true statement. And, you know, coming out of prison after doing 35 years, you know, some people don't have to do that long. But if you don't have the support, family support, you know, just, you know, loved ones that supporting you, you're really behind the 8 ball. You're really at a disadvantage. And this is why, like I told you before, like, prison is not meant for us to survive. Attorney Mack can attest to this. You know, it's, if you survive it physically, it's definitely not meant for you to survive it mentally and spiritually. It's not meant for that. It's meant to destroy you. So the healing starts, you know, when you finally get out of there and you have people around you that really, you know, are concerned about you and care about you, and you can reveal all the ills that you went through. You can reveal everything, you know, that has affected you during your time in you know, while being incarcerated. But if you hold on to that stuff and you bury it, or, you know, you just try to suppress it, it's going to eat you up. So people need to know that, especially people that's coming out of those prisons. You know, they need to know that, you know, they have to do their best to find an environment where they can, you know, lay everything out and get the love and the attention and, you know, the affection from their loved ones to start healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't heal after going through, because that stuff is torture. I mean, night and day, 24 hours a day. There's no relief. There's no outlet. You know, you're just in there, and you're being tortured. It feels like you're burning inside. So there has to be a level of healing when you come out of there. And if it's not, you know, there's no telling what kind of time bombs you'll be dealing with if they don't heal. So this is an important subject, you know, healing the wounds of injustice, because, wow, you know, and like Attorney Mack always stresses, you know, I didn't do the crime I was in there for. Some people that's in there that did something, but they didn't do what they were convicted of. They overcharge you, they over-indict you, and by the time those guys, you know, get threatened with a million years, they end up copping out to something that they didn't do. Even though they may have committed a crime, the crime that they end up copping out to, pleading out to, is something that they didn't do. So there's all kind of nuances in this criminal injustice system that, you know, these type of things, this podcast, I don't even know what this is called, this show is bringing out. And people talk about, you know, we need solutions. Yeah, we definitely need solutions. But the only way to get to being able to solve something is to bring it to the forefront. And if you don't bring these things to the forefront and make people aware of what's really going on, then how could you ever get to a solution? You know, I'm going to keep, you know, doing my best to make people aware of what's really going on, because people really don't know. And it was a comment on here today where a girl said that Black people need to start taking accountability. And I'm not going to say that's a unfair statement, but white people need to start taking accountability too. And the white people that's got this diabolical system, this injustice system, need to be held accountable too. You know, when you're dealing with a system that has key words, they have catchwords that, okay, if a person is white and a person is considered Black, has melanin in their skin, they could do the same exact crime. And the white person will be charged with robbery, and the Black person will be charged with aggravated robbery. The white person will be charged with burglary, same crime. The Black person will be charged with aggravated robbery or burglary. And it's ingrained in the system that we are to be punished more for the same crimes or less crimes than our Caucasian brothers and sisters. So until we shed light on this and hold everybody accountable, you know what I'm saying? You can't just say Black people need to be, you know, take accountability. The people that's got this system in place need to take accountability. You know, we all need to take accountability. We all need to get our children. You know, when Bill Cosby was trying to be a activist, up until that point, none of those charges ever came out. None of those accusations ever came out. As soon as he starts saying to Black parents, get your children, go get your children off the corner. Those are your children. And he started doing his little tour throughout the United States, telling people to get their children. Oh, now all of a sudden, all these charges come out. I don't know if he did it or not, but if he did do it, or if he didn't do it, those people were aware of those accusations for years. But until he became an activist, it never came out. Oprah Winfrey got all of that money. She won't do nothing in America for Black people. She's an activist over in Africa because she knows that they'll tear her down if she tries to be an activist for Black people in this country. Same thing, Michael Jordan, and you could go down the list. They know. So there is a bigger picture on the wall than, you know, us just fixing ourselves. And there's no what is the word they use when well, I don't know, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, but there's no fixing it. There's no fixing the system. The system has to be overhauled. It has to be scrapped and built again. There's no fixing it. And this is what we have to do. We have to do these type of shows and make people aware of what's going on, because, you know, people are really, you know, they like cattle. They like sheep being led to the slaughter. And while they're walking with their phones and they're plugged in and they're punching text messages out and playing games, they're walking over cliffs. Don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing I wanted to comment on was, you know, the civilians. You know, there's a difference between a civilian and a person that's in the streets, a person that's, you know, actively and consciously committing crimes. It's a difference. It's the difference between a goon and a civilian. A difference between a goon and a post office worker, or a doctor, or a cabbie, an Uber driver. It's a difference. So people need to know that if you make them a victim and they're civilians, they're supposed to call the police. They're supposed to get on the stand and testify against you. They're not in the streets with you. They're not selling drugs with you. They're not doing those type of things with you. They are civilians. And if you abuse them and now you're mad at them because they're trying to get some justice, this mentality is crazy to me. And those people that's in the streets, they know who's in the streets with them, out there committing those crimes or whatever it is that they do. And they know who's not. So there's, like I said, a whole lot of nuances to all of these discussions that we're having that need to be brought to the forefront in order for us to start being able to heal and get to solutions. That's why I'm at with it.
Yes. Dr. Shari.
So there's a lot to unpack there, but the first thing is that I think a lot of what, you know, Attorney Mack and Dwayne was talking about is something that they refer to in mental health as chronic trauma. You know, when you've spent as much time as you've spent in prison as these two gentlemen have, and have experienced what they've experienced, it really results in something called chronic trauma. And what that really is it's something where it's repeated and it's prolonged, you know, such that it more or less becomes almost a part of who you are without you even realizing it. And a lot of that comes from being in environments where there's a lot of things that are happening that people shouldn't see, people shouldn't be witness to, people shouldn't even have to experience. You know, there's a misnomer in this country that, you know, the prison system is, you know, meant to rehabilitate. Prison system does not rehabilitate anybody. Okay. You know, I've seen what it does for, you know, people who may have gone in and not been violent at the outset of all of this, can sometimes come out and become violent because it's necessary for their sheer survival to be that way. Okay. So there's nothing that's rehabilitative about the prison system. So, you know, in that, Dwayne, I agree with you. I mean, the entire system needs to be overhauled because it really is a misnomer that, oh, the prison system is somehow rehabilitating someone. And then you're rehabilitating someone to do what? Either to commit more crime or to come out and then have difficulty finding a job or finding anything that is going to, you know, put them in a better situation than the one that they just left. So there's that, you know. But I think the other piece that people don't really touch on a lot, because there's also stigma that's associated with, you know, anyone talking about anything related to mental illness, especially in Black and brown communities. You know, the minute someone starts talking about, you know, mental health, it's one of two things. It's, oh, you crazy, or what, you have bipolar disorder. And not everybody that is mentally ill is suffering from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or, you know, whatever. You know, there is a lot of people who are just suffering from just not having anyone to talk to that has any level of understanding of what they're going through, or that they're going through something and maybe they're talking to family or maybe they're talking to friends, but they don't get it, or they have their own agenda that they want to put forth in terms of telling you or making recommendations about what you should do or what you shouldn't do. So this is a lot of what I see, in my practice. But the other piece to this is that, what Jay Love is right. If you want to heal, you got to talk about it. If you want to heal, you have to be able to confront those demons and all of those things that, has led you down this road to where you are. Because although these things may have happened to you, you shouldn't allow it to define you. And especially if you're going to let it define you in a negative way, So to the person that put that comment in there, yeah, mental health is real and we need to stop running away from it. We need to confront it for what it is, acknowledge it for what it is, validate it, and then seek to address it in any way that we can, whether it's you seeking out professional help or that you are seeking out or talking to people who, can in some way relate. But you have to acknowledge that there is a problem. And more of us are suffering from some form of mental health than we care to admit, and so and there's nothing wrong with admitting that there's something wrong. So let's start with that. If you wake up in the morning and you feel like you can't even get out of the bed to get started with your day, there is nothing wrong with admitting that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, hey, you know what? I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. So we have to, stop with, kind of telling people to get over something. We have to stop with the language of, oh, well, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. No, it doesn't make everybody stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some of the sort of the misnomers that we have to confront. The other side of all of this too is that we also have to think about the families that you brothers leave behind when you end up in prison. Okay? Because the thing about it is that, whereas you guys are on the inside suffering, families are on the outside suffering because we're helpless. We're helpless to help you through what you're going through in there, and so that also leads to a lot of trauma, on both ends, whether it's family trauma, whether it's, the trauma that you guys experience while you're in there. It's the whole family needs to confront what's happened. The whole family needs to deal with it in a way that everybody can heal from it.
Yeah.
And that the family unit as a whole can be better and communicate.
Yeah.
And these are all things that we don't talk about openly. So it's really good that we have this forum in which, we are talking about it openly, because there's a lot of people out here that need to hear what we're talking about. They need to
Right.
hear what we're saying, because, if you're not talking about it, it has no life. And you have to give life to the things that we've all kept quiet for so long. Really, we've kept it quiet for generations, if you want to think about it.
Exactly.
And then the last point is that, a lot of what needs to change in the system needs to primarily start with the Constitution, because everything that exists in this system today starts with that. So we need to get away from the Constitution and come up with something that is fair and equitable to everybody, because the Constitution is not.
Mm-hmm.
And it never has been, nor will it ever be.
Whew, you said a mouthful. So
Can I comment?
go ahead, Dwayne.
Everything that Shari said is very true, but there's a angle that the mental health professionals aren't looking at. And what they do is, and I don't think it's purposely, I think it's unconsciously, but what they do is they scare people. And they try to, and you know, unconsciously, I think that they try to make everybody think that they got a mental illness. And this is what people, it scares people off of seeking, you know, help, or just seeking someone to talk to, because just because you need somebody to talk to, because you need someone to vent to, doesn't mean that you're mentally ill. But this is how it comes off to people, and it scares people off. So, you know, I want people out there to know that just because you might have some issues, and you know, you might have some wounds, because that's what they are, you know, like I told you before, you know, I'm not bearing the physical wounds of the bullwhip, but I have them. You know, I've been, you know, beaten for years and years and years, tortured. So I understand that. But I want people to know that just because you might have some issues, you might have some things that, you know, you need to talk about, doesn't mean that you're mentally ill or you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? So this is what I think that the mental health professionals need to recognize, so that they can pull more people into getting the help that they need.
That's true. And I also think that there needs to be, because I don't do that. That's one thing I don't do. I don't automatically think that somebody's crazy. Unfortunately, though, the way the system is set up as far as the insurance people are concerned, you got to give somebody a diagnosis. So that's the way the system is set up. But I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. You know, I also know that because the system is set up the way that it is, that it's really incumbent on people like me to say to somebody, well, okay, you know what? This is what I see. This is what I'm observing based on what you're talking to me about, and kind of take the mystery out of it. You see what I'm saying? If people understand where you're coming from and why you're thinking the way in which you are, then it kind of takes the mystery out of it, which then also kind of takes the fear out of wanting to seek that help out, because people are not going to be attracted to something that they're not aware of or that they don't know. Like, you know, people fear what they don't understand. So if you make a conscious effort to help people understand where you're coming from and why you're coming from that perspective, then, you know, they can agree or disagree with it, but at least they have a better understanding of why you're coming from where you're coming from. The other part of this is that there needs to be more mental health providers that look like me, and there isn't. The last stat that I saw was that I think there was only 17% of mental health providers that are persons of color, or that identify as persons of color, which means that the other 83% is you know what. And that is not a representation of the people that truly need the help. You know, so it's hard I can't tell you how many times I hear from people that, hey, you know what? I wanted to come to you because, you know what? I wanted to talk to somebody who looks like me. And there's not enough of us. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm turning people away because I don't have enough capacity to accommodate. You know, so there needs to be more people out there that looks like me, that, you know, comes from backgrounds such as, you know, the backgrounds that I come from, that are willing to reach out and help people in that way.
And, you know, can I say this? I have another perspective of this, of how systemic racism plays a part in this whole pipeline to prison situation. You know, just as a segue, I saw a report the other day about how doctors determine body mass index has got strains of racism in it. Okay, because they have one model that they use, which is primarily European. Okay, and they don't take into account ethnicity, race, some you know, environment, And it's showing that you have people that are per se obese when they really should not be characterized that way at all. So everybody is kind of forced into that medical determination, which can have a lot to do with your insurance, how long you supposedly live, and those sorts of things. So I say that to segue in terms of the state of Michigan. There are two things that are very important before a person goes to trial. One, competency, okay? Two, insanity, okay? Competency deals, where is the person at right now? Can they assist their attorney in defending themselves in a court of law? Insanity doesn't deal with right now. Legal insanity deals with back then. What state of mind were you in back then when the alleged crime was committed? And what I'm finding is that, they've got these metrics that they use. Some of y'all that are much more familiar with medicine than I am can say, but they've got these definitions, in other words, of different kinds of mental illness and insanity and what have you. And what I'm finding is that those metrics really are a cookie cutter. Okay, they're a cookie cutter. They don't take into consideration at all your ethnic background, where you were raised, your environment, the kind of nutrition you have and what have you. They just don't do it. So because of that, in my career, I've had less than 0.5% of my clients that were found not to be competent. And I've had even less percentage of my clients found to fit the criminal definition of insanity at the time of the offense, thereby being not guilty by reason of insanity. And the problem I've got with that is this. If that is true, in other words, if everybody that goes to trial ends up going to penitentiary, they're competent to stand trial, and they had no mental illness or defect at the time of the offense, why does the state of Michigan have a conviction of guilty but mentally ill? Can you see how the hypocrisy, how that doesn't go? They have guilty but mentally ill. And from my penitentiary experience, I saw where they kept the people that were guilty but mentally ill. Units segregated to themselves. And those people got in a line every day, 3 times a day, a line, okay? They give them a cup of water and they give them pills. It's called a med line. And I've said this before, and Brother Man knows what I'm talking about. It's called a med line. They will literally dope them people up so they're not a security risk per se, only risk they are to themselves. And those folks, it brings tear to my eyes, walk that track like zombies. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Walk that track like zombies. Slobber, shoes broken down, some people peeing on themselves, whatever. And the only interest the Department of Correction have is in getting them people from in their cell out to eat in the yard and back in their cell. That's the extent of it. So that's some of the systemic racism that I want to keep talking about, Jay Love, because when I hear my good sister, my brother talk about it, that part of mental illness is simply not addressed in the penitentiary. It simply isn't. And by the way, those people that are guilty but mentally ill, a lot of those folks, they don't get parole. They get what's called flops. Okay, flops. And that's literally what it means, a flop. Like you flop over a pancake in a pan. See us again in 2 years, loon. Okay, and those folks that really need mental health treatment, it's so hard to get mental health treatment in a penitentiary, like building a house in the middle of a tornado. Really, really hard to do. So when they don't get the mental health treatment, then the parole board says, well, you haven't improved. You can't even fully articulate why we should let you out. Okay, so you need to continue on in here until you can come with a plan, with somebody that's going to support you when you get out, some kind of job opportunity when you get out. How? People that don't have any mental illness or guilty but mentally ill, they have help coming out on their own. On their own, without the handicap of not given proper treatment. So when I hear this sister talk about the burdens that you have, sister, I'm with you 100%, you know, and brother man can tell you, I'm sure he's seen these folks, which are victims, by the way. You see, you can be guilty of a crime, okay, and go to the penitentiary. That doesn't mean you're not a victim when you get to the penitentiary. See, you can be victimized in the penitentiary. You understand? So, you know, nobody is addressing that. So, you know, my heart goes out, you know, and we just got to keep fighting, y'all. We just got to keep fighting.
Yeah. So there was a few things I wanted to touch on.
Oh,
Go ahead, Rabbit.
I was just gonna say, oh my goodness, this is so rich. I'm sorry, I'm driving at the time, and I parked now. I wanted to say that I want our listeners and viewers to know that this starts early. It starts early. And when you look at how many children don't receive help needed, and this is from in preschool, in kindergarten, and they don't receive help even there. And then you grow up not having the help, And then it goes on to when they're teenagers, and then they haven't had the help. Ask yourselves how many schools are having an ACEs evaluation, you know, so that they know the adverse childhood experiences that children go through. How many schools actually do that to see where is this child? We don't do it, even though the instrument has been out there for years, for decades, but we don't even try to consider to measure a child's traumatic experience. And then when you go into prison, the studies have already indicated that there's more trauma on the inside of those walls than it is when you come out. And so when you go in, you've already had these experiences, you've already been traumatized, then you go in and you get re-traumatized again in prison. And yet the stigma is that when you are dealing with mental health issues, you know, it's like it's a bad thing, you know, but no one considers how bad racism is, or the injustice everywhere. You know, no one says that, well, shouldn't that person be considered? Is there a diagnosis for having that much hatred for a person due to the color of their skin? I am convinced as there have been so much studying on the people with melanin inside of their bodies, people of color. It's always we're getting studied. I wonder when we're going to flip this and study how insane it is to continue a narrative of hatred and demise of a population. And we got to know that first. It's not up to us to wait for them to understand who we are. We need to understand who we are. And that's how we take our power back. And we do it by acknowledging we've been through some stuff. And it's time for us to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
And some of us are going through some stuff now. Some of us are going through some stuff even now that we're not talking about, that we're not putting front and center, that we're just kind of pushing off to the side and just looking for, you know, somebody else to solve the problem. But I'm sorry, Reverend Tia, to your point about even the school system and trying to catch these problems earlier on, it goes back to Attorney Mack's point about the systemic racism. You know, the only time kids get evaluated now is when they're a problem in the classroom, you know, and the automatic go-to is ADHD or, you know, one of the other, you know, diagnoses. And then they want to put you on medication. And medication isn't the cure-all for everything. You know, medication isn't the cure-all for boredom, because many of these kids that they're having trouble with, many of these kids are too smart to be sitting in the classrooms that they're sitting in, you know, but nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to, bring that to the forefront, and then parents, unfortunately, are not always well versed in how to go and articulate and fight for their kids' rights, so they just accept what is being, fed to them, and the kids are on medication needlessly. And the medication, I mean, look, I don't think any kid should be on medication at a young age, because, kids are still developing, and all of that medication has effects, on these kids for the long term. So I'm not a proponent of, kids being on medication. It's, hey, figure out what the real problem is, because not all of these kids have mental health diagnoses. Not all of these kids need to be on medication. Like I said, some of these kids are just too smart to be sitting in the classrooms that they're sitting in. And maybe you need to assess and evaluate for that. Some of these kids, yes, you're right. They don't use the ACEs evaluation tool. At least I haven't seen it used in that way. But even when in instances where someone is even talking about it and having the conversation about it, it's not framed in a way that's designed to actually come up with the solution to help that young person. It's really more so weaponized against them.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the frames, or the frames of thinking that we have to kind of fall out of. We have to stop just accepting what people kind of just give us and start, advocating more for, hey, we know our kids. We know what's going on with our kids. We need to stop accepting the status quo and start pushing back more on the, hey, no, I'm not going to let you do that to my child. No, my child has gone through this, or my child needs that. And that comes from educating too, in terms of educating parents on what their rights are, what they should be doing, what they can be doing to really advocate for their kids, and being more present.
Right.
Because parents who are actively involved, their kids tend to do a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the kids know that, hey, you know what? I'm not getting away with this. My parents going to be down here in a heartbeat. So there has to be, so kind of, I guess, tying this back into, I guess, a level of accountability, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a reason for you not to do something, but you sometimes have to find a reason to actually do it. And when it comes down to our children, we have to find more reasons to do something than not.
Yes. Because it goes back again to what Attorney Mack was saying earlier about how they measure us. They're measuring us against a system that wasn't even created for us in the first place.
That's true.
And they're measuring our children in that same system.
That's true.
And kids learn differently, and the system hasn't changed to reflect that. They're still trying to educate and all of this on the same old system that probably wasn't even working when we were going through that system.
Mm-hmm.
We just adapted to it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we have so much technology, these kids know stuff at 1 and 2 years old. It takes some people years, if not months, to learn how to do on these devices. And so, for me, my grandkids at 1 and 2 years old, they knew how to go on YouTube, and they was watching phonics, at 1 and 2 years old, doing their sounds, and now they're reading at 3 and 5 year olds. So I'm just saying that the way, and so if somebody else was watching them or teaching them, they might say that they're so energetic and they're doing all this stuff. They must have ADD. No, they're just like super smart, and they're ahead of themselves. And you can't see it because you're basing it off of an old metric that's not working for us at all. Right. So right. I think you're right. If we don't acknowledge these issues, if we don't have these conversations, if we don't even come into these forums where we can have conversations, how can we move forward for healing if we even are afraid to have the conversation or even ask the questions? I listen to Dr. Umar, and he talks about it all the time about not having them diagnose your kids and put these labels on them, because those labels really it's like a trail to the criminal justice system, because they're already criminalizing your child as soon as they label them with this diagnosis. And so, but if we're not having these conversations, and if we're like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, you're not even open, how can we move forward? So we have to have these spaces where we can have these conversations and to move forward.
Jay Love,
Yes, Dwayne.
let me add something to that. What you and
Okay.
Ms. Littlejohn and what Shari was saying about the kids. I just want to add to it because you all said it well. And I want to say to parents that, your children are very impressionable. And you have to, because many times parents and adults around children give children insecurities about themselves, not consciously, not purposely. They play with them in certain ways, but these children are very impressionable, and they sign those contracts that they hear the adults telling them, like, if you playing with a child and you telling them that he can't sing, or in my family, some of the adults, when we was little, they told us, oh, they called you Ugg, and it was a cute nickname for you. But children sign those contracts, and so they'll grow up believing that they can't sing, or they can't do this, or they can't do that, or that they're ugly, or whatever the case may be. And the parents and the adults around them don't realize that they're giving these children these contracts to sign for the rest of their lives. And they're making them grow up with these insecurities. So to parents out there, you got to protect, you got to be conscious of it. Don't play with your children in, a negative way, and don't allow anybody else around them to play with them in a negative way, because those children grow up with those insecurities, and, the adults might not mean it in that fashion, and I'm sure that they don't, but the children don't know that. So you should never lie to your children, even if it's a lie that you deem is better for them, because as they're growing up, all they're going to remember is the lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they're going to remember.
Yeah. And Jay Love, can I just say this one thing? I'm sorry. Am I cutting somebody off?
Go
No,
ahead.
good.
Okay, look, excuse me, y'all. I got to ask, because it wouldn't be the first time somebody objected, Your Honor. Attorney Mack is preaching again. Okay, so with my colleagues, I want to be sure I don't inadvertently do that. And see, part of the problem too, that I see through my lens, all right, we have got to stop in our community justifying the denigration of our women and our people under the First Amendment right for some rapper or stage performer to be on there and talk about B's and H, and all this. We've got to quit legitimizing that, because if you notice, and I got $1,000 in a check, if somebody can point to me another race of people that allows the wholehearted, full-fledged denigration of their women than African Americans. Okay? I don't see any Jewish rappers talking about B's and H women in their community. I don't see any Italian rappers talking about B and H's in their community. Okay? I don't see, especially no Arab. I see no Arab rappers talking about they ought to be able to do this with women, because it just seems, and perhaps it's part of my maturing process. The older I get, I want to try to improve for the rest of the time I have in this life. And I'm saying that when we notice, some of these rappers and people, multimillionaires, and we give them a pass because they give a few $1 million to like the United Negro College Fund or whatever. Well, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a spirit is a worse thing to waste. Okay, is a worse thing to waste. And so I guess what I'm saying is, for me, I would hope that the parents, will start monitoring some of the things your kids are listening to, and part of the problem, and I know that this happened to me when I was younger, God bless my late mother, but coming from a single family household, she had to work all the time to support me and my brother. Guess who my primary babysitter was? The TV. Okay. And I'm saying, when I look at some of the indoctrination I had even as a child, and I've often said this, grew up watching the Flintstones and the Jetsons. Okay. The Flintstones and the Jetsons. It wasn't until I was later on in life saying, wait a minute, hold it now. I don't remember seeing no black people on the Flintstones. Okay. I saw Mr. Slade, Barney Rubble, Fred, Wilma, Bam Bam. I didn't see no black people on the Flintstones. And then I looked and said, wait a minute, I'm watching the Jetsons. I didn't see no black people on the Jetsons either. So what does that tell me about, that was telling me about black cartoon people? They wasn't alive with the Flintstones. So the black cartoon people had to have been born somewhere between the Flintstones and the Jetsons and died out. So what I'm saying is, when I see those things, I realize the impact on me, because I grew up thinking that that's history. The caveman, the people that gave us all these things were people that didn't look like me. The people in the future with all this mega science and advantage, they don't look like me. So where do I fit in? And so what I'm saying is, we need to start really analyzing what we're letting our kids look at, what we're doing, because I'm telling you, God bless people who want to disagree with me, but a lot of these rappers and talking about, B's and A's and this and that, whatever, and some of the women too, some of the videos on there, shaking themselves and all that, saying, well, I got a right to do this. That sends a bad image. And that's something we as parents and grandparents got to really help, because I don't want to see that continue like that. I really don't.
But I think that also reflects the further denigration of, the Black family. I think that a lot of what we see proliferated in media. Yes, I agree. Parents got to have, do a better job of monitoring what kids are watching, but parents also got to do a better job of monitoring themselves and what their kids see them do. Okay. A lot of, kids are very impressionable. Okay. And so, kids are watching what you're doing. They're listening to what you're saying. They're looking at what you're looking at. Okay. And so if there is no guidance and, there is nothing that, that says, hey, you know what? This isn't what this might be good for this person, but this ain't for you type thing. Then somebody can easily grow up and say, hey, you know what? I'm good enough for that. That's all I'm good enough for. That's all I want to aspire to be, and it's interesting. This is interesting that we're even talking about this. So I was having a conversation this morning with my husband about a couple of ladies on his job. He works at a school, and one of the ladies on the job, she just got this job as a school safety agent. And, her and this other woman are talking about becoming strippers because they need to make more money, and I'm saying, but you have a job. Okay. But the job that you have isn't good enough. So now you're sitting here having this whole conversation about you need to get on a pole. And it's like, no, that is not the solution to the problem. I mean, and I'm not knocking anybody that does that, but that can't be like the immediate go-to. And that's the other problem that we have is that, everybody wants this instant gratification. They want stuff to happen just like that. And we didn't get here just like that. So right. It can't be this thing of, oh, well, all of this is going to go away just like that. There has to be a process to making these changes. And it has to start with what we do and what we expose our kids to. If you're a single woman and you got, men coming in and out of the house, and around your kids, and your kids don't know what you're doing. They don't know, they confused about, who this guy is and what this guy is to you. You got to think about what impact that's having on them, not only in the short term, but what it's going to have on them in the long term. If guys have, a string of women that are coming in around their kids, again, what message are you sending? You know, and yeah, society pushes it, but we uphold it. We uphold it. Because again, we'll only get away with what we allowed to get away with. So society pushes that, but we uphold it by actually doing it. We enforce it. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we're all supposed to have this freedom, right? But when we have an opportunity to actually exercise it, we take the easy way out. And we gotta stop taking the easy way out and start putting in the work that's necessary to actually change the narrative.
Exactly.
And we can't rely on society to do that for us. We can't rely on the television screen to do that for us. We can't rely on hip hop artists to do that for us.
That's true.
We can't rely on sports figures to do any of that for us. We have to do it for ourselves.
Yes.
That's right.
I was going to say that we have been programmed to believe that a celebrity has more credibility than your parents, or or all these, a football player or a basketball player or a stripper or a famous stripper who's now a rapper. All these people have more credibility, or you supposed to look up to them than the people that should be your role model. Like, the people who out here who is putting this roof over your head, the people who are invested in your education or invested in you to push you forward should be your role models. And so we have bought into this fast way of living because we want a quick fix where there is no quick fix. There is zero quick fix. There's always a journey. There's always some type of experience you're going to have to go through to get to the other side. But if we keep cutting it off, and this is where I think the mental part, the illness part comes in, because we're so invested in the quick fix. And when we don't get the quick fix, now everything done fell apart. I'm depressed. I don't have this. That's because you looking, like you said, the ladies want to be a stripper because they think that's a quick solution to a problem that might have a longevity. How long can you be a stripper? You know what I'm saying? What's the long range plan that you should be looking for the solution to make more money? Not just, hey, I'm going to get up and I think I'm going to go be a stripper because, hey, I need to whatever, because I need this now. So again, it goes back to what Beulah was talking about early on about accountability. Like, taking accountability for yourself, taking accountability for your family, taking accountability for your community. But it all starts with you first, acknowledging that there's a problem, that there's an issue. Now what you're going to do from that, Like a lot of times I see that post. I think I even post, it's okay to say I'm not okay. It's okay to say this is now I acknowledge this is not okay. Now what is the next step to move past this is not okay? What am I going to do next? I'm not not the quick solution or the quick fix, because you still going to have at the end of the day the problem.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. I just got to say this one thing. I do. Okay. I just can't get off this topic of imagery and what's happening with the image we have. I'm going to give you a prime example. Something that's bothered me for a long time. Now, I'm trying to remember the Black women that have won an Academy Award. Okay. I know that Hattie McDaniel won one for Gone with the Wind. Okay. I know that Whoopi Goldberg won one for Ghost, supporting actress in Ghost. Okay. I know that Monique won one for Precious. I know that Halle Berry won one for a Monsters Ball. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Regina King won one or not. I seem to remember one other Black woman maybe winning an Academy Award. But my point is, by and large, the images that Black women get rewarded for are ones of absolute vulgarity and sexuality. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Monique got that Academy Award in Precious. Did you see that movie? Did you see that movie? And what I'm telling you is she got an Academy Award. I don't think she was acting at all. I think she's being herself. And what I'm saying is the absolute disrespect she showed for her daughter, who was raped by this woman's husband, and the duplicity in that, to me, was a terrible image. Halle Berry may have done some great things, but I seem to remember her getting that award primarily because wasn't she having sex doggy style with a man? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just being for real. That kind of vulgarity kind of situation. And I tell you what really pisses me off. There's an actress by the name of Angela Bassett who should definitely have won an award for What's Love Got to Do with It. There's an actress named Angela Bassett who was a nominee this time for an Academy Award, didn't get it. Nothing against the Asian people, God bless the Asians, but they gave it to an Asian woman for whatever movie she was in. And so I remember a black woman by the name of Diana Ross was an Academy Award nominee, okay, for a movie called Lady Sings the Blues. I remember another black woman by the name of Cicely Tyson, an Academy Award nominee for a movie called Sounder, okay? Both of those women got beat out by a woman named Liza Minnelli in a silly, stupid-ass musical, Cabaret. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But what I'm saying is that we do not have the proper acknowledgement of black women to be a proper example when these Academy Awards. And I'm saying that's part of the imagery, because when young black girls are looking at that, who consider an acting profession, well, what roles do I get that I can really land? Okay. Can I be a Cicely Tyson and get acknowledgement? No. Can I be a Diana Ross, get acknowledgement? No. But if I'm a foul-mouthed, trash-talking woman like Monique or whatever, I could probably get me an Academy Award. I got a big problem with that, y'all, and I'm sorry. So, Jay Love, if you want to mute me, go ahead, but I had to say it.
No, I agree with you, but I also think that that's a byproduct of us not being in those places and spaces where things get voted on, you know. So that speaks to even a larger issue of we're not represented in those rooms when, you know, votes are being cast. You know what I'm saying? These votes are being cast by people who don't know anything about, you know, things like what happened in Precious. You know, I mean, unfortunately, that was something of a reflection of what sometimes happens in communities, and particularly poor communities, right?
Right.
So, but we're not represented in those rooms. Mm-hmm. And we're not represented in those rooms in a way that even if a Monique could, you know, would win an Academy Award for something like that you put it in its proper context, mm-hmm. that it doesn't then become a stereotype or a typecast that all Black women have to be in these roles where they play, you know, derogatory characters in order to get rewarded for that. You see what I'm saying? So you're right. It's about the imagery, it's about the messaging, but it's also about the fact that we are not represented. We are not in these rooms when people are having these discussions, when the votes are being cast. And that's something that they were actually talking about in the media, where you know, people are getting nominated for Academy Awards for movies that's like, huh? Like, really? And that's because we don't have representation in those rooms. And that's one of the bigger problems that we have. In all of these systems that we talk about where there's systemic racism, we don't have adequate representation in these rooms. We don't have adequate representation in these arenas to be able to really speak to the issues that are happening in these communities of color. We have people that speak about it more anecdotally, but we don't have adequate representation of people, or at least a large enough number of people in these rooms that can really articulate what's going on and what's really happening in these communities that then could speak to some level of change. So this is why I had said what I said earlier in the beginning about we got to get in these rooms. We got to get in these places and these spaces where our voices can be heard, where people aren't putting their own narrative on something based on what they think it is, but not what they know. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to kind of like get in these rooms and be like, no. This is not what it is in these neighborhoods. This is not what's happening. This is not a true reflection of what the Black family is or what the Black family represents. And if we don't have our voices in those rooms, and we don't have, like, basically our presence is a present that keeps on giving. But if we are not in these rooms to give these presents, then we can't get the representation that we need the way that we need it.
But it's because we're not in those rooms that these images are purposely put out there for, you know, the masses of us to accept that imagery. Right. And it's because this is done purposely. You know, we've seen it done numerous times throughout history, in recent history too. Because, like, if you think back, and we are old enough to remember this, if you think back to the late 80s and early 90s, it was all conscious rap. It was all conscious hip hop. That was the most successful hip hop in the world. And these record companies came to the table and came to a conclusion that we're not putting this stuff out no more. Public Enemy didn't just die off, just fall off a cliff like that. KRS-One just didn't fall off a cliff like that. These conscious rappers were put out of business by these record companies because they're not going to put that content out there anymore. They started seeing Black people wearing the red, black, and green, and, you know, the African patches, and, you know, starting to become conscious, putting the fist up and all of that type of stuff. Those white record company owners was like, oh, wait up. No, we can't put this out. So next thing you start hearing was, I pull up with the sword off, bodies all hauled off. Yeah. You know, the gangster rap. Right. And then right after that, you know, they came in with the materialism. And since then, we've been all jacked up. Right. That's true. These things, because we're not represented, as Shari was saying, are put out there purposely. It's done purposely. Right. This is why Monique can win an Oscar for that role. This is why Halle Berry wins an Oscar for that role, because they want our people to see that. That's right. And this is the way you be successful, to act like this and to be like this. This is done purposely. That's right. Very much so. That's right.
It's all to tear you down. I know yesterday I was with Reverend Tia, and we was in this meeting, and the attorney who was speaking, he said, if you want to kill the community, destroy the schools. And so I was like, wow. And that's true, you know. And if you start young enough, I mean, even, you know, statistically, they're saying like third graders, if they don't pass certain tests by third grade, then they're just like straight to the prison, you know, school to prison pipeline. You know, they creating a space for them at third grade. And so with us knowing that this is part of how this system is created, we have to, you know, take accountability again, take accountability of what our kids are. What are we feeding them mentally, physically, and spiritually? That's right. Because at these ages, they're like sponges. And if you don't start at a young age putting it in there, then you see what's going on right now in your communities, you know. That's what's going on because of what was put into them at such an early age. And, you know, also, we haven't even touched on this, but the trauma that's already in the DNA, you know, that's already there. You know, nobody ever wants to talk about that trauma, but it's there and it's a real fact. And a lot of these things is triggers to pop it off, you know. And so now, you know, we're talking about the mental health and all of this stuff. And it is all because of the trauma, the criminalization in the foods. All of these things, it's all works together. So
you're talking about complex trauma there.
Yeah.
Because that's what's indicative of complex trauma. It's just exposure to a variety of different environments and you know, situations that just causes a whole bunch of trauma, whether it's child abuse, whether it's, witness to violence, whether it's, some type of racism. All of that falls along the realm of complex trauma. And I'm pretty sure that, most people of color in some way, shape, or form have experienced some form or some level of complex trauma.
Oh, absolutely.
No
Absolutely.
No
You can
doubt.
watch it on the news.
Yeah.
These videos of people getting shot in the back or beaten down or strangled by police, and it all feeds into that trauma.
So how is it that, and I put this question out there because this is the topic, how is it that we start healing the wounds and restore hope to our community?
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're doing right now is part of it. I think it's a big part of it because, people in our communities don't talk about things like this. It, like I said, it's like we're all kind of suffering from like this warrior syndrome where we feel like we just gotta, forge ahead, push forward, push through it. And it's like, no, because all that energy has to go somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like as you're pushing through it, it doesn't mean you're pushing through it and it's just falling off the cliff. You're pushing through it and all it's doing is just moving to a different location. And it's just waiting for the opportune time to just pop up and get you. So I think what we're doing right now is definitely part of that because we got to get out of this mindset of, oh, we just got to push through. We just got to get through it. We just got to get over it and just keep moving because you're not getting over it. All you're doing is just kicking the can down the road until it hits the wall. And then once it hits the wall, that's when usually things go from bad to worse, and so this is why, sometimes you see people having these snap moments. Sometimes, you'll see people who, look like on the outside that they're well put together. They got themselves together and everything else. And then the next minute you're looking at them and it's like, what happened? This is why you have people that are out here committing suicide because they're kicking the can down the road. And once they hit the wall, they don't know where else to go.
And can I say this? I'm sure you've all seen on the news, and I think this is New York. There was a black man on a subway, and I don't know if he was having maybe a mental challenge or what have you. I don't know if he was threatening somebody. I don't believe any weapon was involved, but there was a guy, happened to be Caucasian, wrestled him to the floor of the subway car
and choked him out.
Choked him to death.
Choked that man out. Choked him out. And his defense is, look, I did what I had to do to protect myself and other people. He was breathing. I don't know how he was breathing. I mean, it's hard to breathe when your windpipe is crushed, but I'm no doctor. So what I'm saying is that regardless of what that man did, I mean, and I'm not justifying what he did. I'm not sure what he did if he's creating a disturbance. The penalty for creating a public disturbance should not be death. And so what I'm saying is that now it's gotten to the point, there's been so much of a pass given to police by and large, particularly with qualified immunity. It seems like it's spreading out to the public at large now. Okay. I felt I was in danger. The man was a danger to me and other people on the subway. And, I'm telling you, I'm very, very concerned about that because this was a military type mixed martial arts hold he had on this man. Okay. He had they're on the ground. I've got somewhat of a wrestling background, had his legs on the ground, wrapped his legs around this man's waist and was controlling his head. You got control of the man already. You don't need to compress that man's windpipe. He's on the ground. If he's on the ground, he's immobile. And now it's a matter for law enforcement. They've got police on those trains. Okay. So why that happened and now it's like he's a hero? he's a hero. I mean, wasn't there a situation in New York where there was what is that? Bernard Getz was killing them people, shooting them people on the subway. Okay, so it's looked like we're having a redux of that again. That man is dead.
Right. So let me just add some stuff to that, because for one thing, so going back to the complex trauma piece, that young man that ended up being killed, his mother was murdered, and he had been suffering from some form of mental illness since his mother was murdered. And so they talked about that. The other piece of this is that the gentleman that, choked him to death is ex-military. He's actually an ex-Marine. And there was a lot in the way of protests after all of this happened, because he was not arrested. He initially was allowed to go home. Okay. And the DA, I think at the time, was not planning on pressing any charges. However, people, black and white, came out in droves and started protesting. At one point, they actually shut the subway down in protest of this man not being charged with anything. And it was only then that I guess the DA reconsidered and decided that they were going to press any charges against the man. Now, in contrast, the story of the 20-year-old young man that I was just talking about, who stabbed this gentleman on the subway last week in defense of his girlfriend, they tried to have him remanded without bail. They didn't let him go. They arrested him. They were trying to have him remanded without bail. And that was going to be that. And like I said, and his attorney pointed out the discrepancies between the situation with the white Marine, where this happened, where the situation happened, and then how they were treating this young black man. And this young black man he's gainfully employed. His family was there in support of him. He's never been in trouble before, has no criminal background, nothing. And they wanted to remand him without bail. Okay, for defending his girlfriend. Okay, and in that particular situation, from what I understand, the gentleman that ended up getting killed actually touched the girlfriend. So the circumstances are the same in some ways, but different in others. But if you look at the totality of both situations, you can see clearly, the discrepancies in how the case with, the white gentleman was handled versus how the case with the black gentleman was handled. And it wasn't until the attorney pointed out the differences in those two cases that then the judge finally was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to release him without bail. But had the attorney not brought that up, chances are either the young man would have been remanded, or they would have set bail so high that he would have had no choice but to sit there until his trial date.
But it goes deeper.
Difference.
It goes deeper than that, though. It's this stuff is ingrained in our laws in this country. If you look at the Dred Scott case, it was a United States Supreme Court case. United States Supreme Court judges deem that there's nothing that a white man can do to a black man that's wrong.
That's true.
A black person, that's wrong. Nothing. This stuff is still ingrained in these people, and it's trickling down to today, and they know this. So even though the show is that they're going to charge this ex-military guy now, the outcome is still going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
He's still, even if they say, we're going to give you a year, we're going to give you 2 years, he'll do, a couple months and be set free some kind of way through some kind of, but it's still the same, because this is what they believe. This is the system that they believe. These laws are still in effect. Even though people don't want to speak about it, people don't want to acknowledge it, but these laws are still in effect. There's nothing that a white man can do. This is the United States Supreme Court that said this. And I'm not verbatim, but damn near verbatim that there's nothing that a white man can do to a black person that's wrong. They can't wrong us. So this is why we see these type of things still going on.
Well, I
I
mean,
said what I said about the Constitution. See, all of that need to go out, because all of that begins and ends with that. All of these so-called documents that was meant to in some way create order in this country has done nothing but oppress. So if you really want to, change the system, you got to start with where it started. This country was built on oppression. This country was built on, oppressive laws and oppressive documents. And even now, to your point, Dwayne, they're referencing these documents as justification for, the continued oppression.
Wasn't it just in Michigan where that person shot the little boy from inside their house because he knocked on their door?
That was in Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, yeah, come on. I mean, and
yeah.
They didn't want to arrest the homeowner.
Yeah. And then don't forget the black woman that was killed was at Broward County, Florida.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, remember that? Just the other day, last week or week before.
When all it did went up on a woman's porch. Somebody said the woman's calling the kids nigga or whatever that is. Okay, so even if she wasn't calling them that, you shoot through the door. You shoot through the door.
Yeah, and
she was afraid for her life.
She studied before she shot through the door, or this was premeditated, right? Because she studied to stand your ground. She studied that, and when the police came, she knew all of that, and she was feeding that narrative to them.
That's right.
From the stand your ground and self-defense.
That's right.
Even though, how is it self-defense when you shoot somebody through the closed door?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But in all of these things, we have to still, like Dwayne said, and like Attorney Mack has said, and also you, Dr. Shari, we have to educate ourselves. We got to educate our families, right? We have to also get involved in what's going on, stay abreast of what's going on.
That's right.
Organize within your own family,
That's right.
In your own family, because this is how we get power, and this is how knowledge is power, and this is what gives us hope to fight injustice, to stand up against injustice, to be constantly in their face for change. Because for me, I don't see anything that I want to reform. I think it all needs to be tore down, and restructured or whatever. But that's going to take work, and it requires us to be accountable and do the work.
Right.
So thank you, Dr. Shari Richardson, Attorney Mack, and Dwayne. Is there anything? I'm gonna start with you, Dwayne, this time. What would you like to leave us with? Turn your mic on, Dwayne.
Thank you. See, thank you. I think this is a very, very vast subject, and healing the wounds, because these wounds are just hundreds of years old and so deep. It's going to be a massive undertaking, and restoring hope to our community, to our people, is another massive undertaking, because like I said last week, we're downtrodden people. We're so downtrodden that, when these type of things happen, it's like it's normal to us. This is like, this happened. Yeah. That's the way it goes. And we accept it. Right. I mean, we as a whole, not us individually. And that comes from being a downtrodden people. We accept these things because we feel like, this always happens. This is what's supposed to happen, or, whatever the case may be. But, no, this is not normal. It's not acceptable. It's not something that we should even have to live with and deal with. And as Shari said, almost every person of color in this country has some type of trauma just living here alone.
Yeah.
I mean, we can be the most upstanding Black individual in the community, and if you hear that siren, it's gonna make you, cringe a little bit. This is tight. This is we're up under so much stress. Some of it is so unconscious and so deep that we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
It's stress every day. I was walking, from the bank the other day, and it was an accident. So it was a police presence over there, and I was getting ready to cross the street, and I said, well hold up. Because I didn't know it was an accident. I just seen the police presence at first. So I didn't know it was an accident until I discerned that later on. So at first I'm thinking like, I don't know what happened over there, but I'm going this way. I want to be around. No police action, no kind of way. So when I got partway down the street, I got ready to cross the street on my way home. And I said, hold up, Dwayne. Just stay on this side of the street, on this sidewalk, because you don't want them to say, I seen you jaywalking. This is just like the stress that we're under is massive. It's unmeasurable.
Yeah.
And this has to change. It has to change. We shouldn't be, traumatized like this just for being, who we are.
Right.
It has to change, and we got to figure out a way to change it. And we got to keep trying until, we're no longer here. Yeah. Keep striving for it. I don't even like to say trying. We got to keep striving for it till we're no longer here. Exactly. It might not happen in our lifetime, but we have to, give that hope that it will happen. So that's what I leave you with.
Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Attorney Matt.
Well, I co-sign everything Dwayne just said. And I guess it's coming up on Father's Day, as you know, day after tomorrow. And so many of our young Black men grew up without fathers in the home, and the mothers, like my mother, had to be both mother and father. So I guess for me, for the fathers that are there, that are listening, and stuff like that, I would just admonish them. Be a real father to your kids, man. Be a real father to your kids, and let them know that they don't have to define their manhood at the end of a leash with a pit bull terrier, by the way, okay, or with a Uzi, or with how many girls you think you can impregnate. Let them know they better than that. The God force within them is better than that. And when I look at the things that happen to Black men, and I guess that's kind of been a big issue of mine lately, young Black men, okay, and getting them to understand that we understand your rage and your anger, but the way to deal with that is not trying to cuss out some Michigan State Police trooper on Michigan Ave. That's not going to get it, okay? That's not going to get it. 99 times out of 100, that's going to get you incarcerated or worse. So, I ask Black men with your young sons, I'm daughters too, but educate them that to be smarter than you are tough. Okay? I'd rather be smart than tough any day, because my mind will do the fighting for me. You understand? My mind will do the fighting for me. And so I guess with this Father's Day, for the fathers that are listening, be there for them, man, because so many Black men I grew up with, we lost our way. I don't know, too much on TV or too much want to be slick. We lost our way, got 10, 12 kids, and like, that's a badge of honor, not supporting none of them. You ain't around none of them, or the men raising them. and that's a badge of honor. So, I'm not trying to put everything off on Black people. I mean, we're classically victims. I acknowledge that, but we got to take accountability for some of ourselves too. In our own community, we are the only people in the history of this nation. In the Constitution, we was only supposed to be 3/5 of a person. Do you know how insulting that is? 3/5 of a person, and the only reason we're 3/5 of a person because it was compromised to count slaves as part of the population. Couldn't vote. So we're the only people, Black men, tell your Black sons, only people in the history of this nation that we've had to have 3 constitutional amendments just in the hope of being made human. So quit, Black men, allowing your sons to feel inferior and they have to mimic and ape somebody else. Teach them to love themselves, love themselves, And I heard a man named Jesse Jackson say, oh, if you stand up instead of bend over, he'll fall off your back. And that's true. It's hard for somebody to ride me like a mule if I'm standing straight up. Okay. So anyway, that's what I'm leaving y'all with. God bless y'all. I love you. And man, I'm here to the end.
Thank you, Attorney Mack. Dr. Shari, what would you like to leave us with?
Okay, so I'm closing this out, I guess, to some extent. So when you want different for yourself, you have to start moving different. Old keys don't unlock new doors. So I say that to say that if we want different, we got to do different. And we can start with ourselves. We can start with changing how we see things, how we look at things. What influences are we, putting forth for other people? Because regardless of what you may think, people are watching you. People are listening to what you're saying. People are looking at what you're doing. And they're looking to see whether what you're saying is actually matching what you're doing. So one of the things, and so I'm going to share something else. One of the things that I share with, my clients is sometimes you got to run your life like a business. Do you have a mission statement? Because if you don't have a mission statement, then what are you doing with your life? How do you know that you're really on the path or the track that you're supposed to be on? How do you hold yourself accountable for being better if you're saying that's what you want? Right? So you have to start with yourself before you can start, worrying about anybody else. Because if you're not walking the walk, then you can't really talk the talk. You can't go and say to somebody else, oh, well, you know what? You got to do better for your kids if you're not doing better for your kids. If you're not setting the example for, the people that are around you, you can't turn around and tell somebody else that you got to set the example for other people, because people are looking at what you're doing. They're listening to what you're saying. So it's start with your own backyard. Start cleaning up your own stuff, because those are the things that you can control. When you clean that up and you start, looking outside your doorstep, start with the small things. Sometimes we kind of, leave off with this impression that in order for us to be doing anything of meaning or purpose, that we have to do it on a large scale. And that isn't true. You can start off with something small and build it into something bigger. Look at what Jay Love is doing. She's starting off with, this movement. And this movement didn't start off the way that it is now. Okay? But it builds into something. You keep up the momentum. Even when things aren't going all that well, it's keep a positive thought. Things are not going to be horrible forever. You're not going to be in this situation forever. Even if it feels like you are, you got to be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel, because you have to have enough faith and belief in yourself that you can get through something.
That's right.
Because if you don't believe in yourself, then you can't look for anybody else to believe in you.
That's true.
So it's start with yourself. Start with yourself. Start with something small. If you're trying to stop smoking, Hey, take the harm reduction approach. Maybe instead of smoking 10 cigarettes a week, how about you cut it down to 5? Okay, if you're trying to adopt a healthier lifestyle where you want to incorporate exercise in something, hey, instead of just trying to run a 5K marathon next week when you haven't trained at all, how about you start with just walking? Okay, walk. And then after you've gotten used to walking and you're feeling more comfortable with walking, then let's go for a light jog, and then you just gradually work your way up to that 5K. But you're not going to get up tomorrow morning and go run a 5K.
Hey, you been fell out by the side of the road, know somebody know some oxygen.
Exactly. So it's a thing of start off small. Start off small, and look at and examine whether or not what you're doing, whether or not the moves that you're making, the decisions that you're thinking about making, does it all align with where you see yourself? And if it's not, then change it. Don't feel like just because you selected a path or chosen a path that you got to stay on that path. If it's not working for you, it's not making you feel good, it's not getting you to where you ultimately want to be, change it. Mm-hmm. You still have the power to do that.
That's right.
Stop giving your power away to other people and letting other people make decisions for you when you have the power to make the decisions for yourself. That's the slave mentality.
That's right.
So it's take control of your life and take control of the lives of the people that are around you, your kids. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because your kids are watching you. Your kids are listening to you. Your kids are absorbing everything that's in their environment. Mm-hmm. So when your kids start talking back to you, you better look at yourself and wonder why. Mm-hmm. Okay? If your kids are out here, smoking and drinking and doing all this stuff, take a look at what the kids are looking at. What are you doing? How are you reinforcing any of that? If your kids are not going to school, okay, well, why are they not going to school? And if you can't answer that question, that's why they ain't going to school. Okay, because you should be able to answer that question as their parent. All right. So we got to start with our own. We got to start with ourselves if we want to be able to make these changes on a larger scale.
Yes.
That's how you create momentum. So to repeat what I said earlier in this is when you want different for yourself, you have to start moving different. Old keys don't unlock new doors. So if you're looking to unlock new doors, you got to do something different.
Amen.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's Dr. Shari Richardson, who's going to be our speaker next week at the Love Gathering. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, Attorney Mack and Dwayne. We have to be the change, and change starts with you, and change is necessary.
That's right.
So I want to close with that, and join us next week at the Love Gathering, Saturday, June the 24th, from 12 noon to 6 p.m. at Handy Park in Redford, Michigan. It's going to be a day of healing. We're going to have meditation, sound healing, energy healing, and we're going to have fun and games and music. And of course, we're going to have Dr. Shari Richardson with us talking and motivating us. So join us next Saturday, Handy Park, 26650 Capitol Avenue in Redford Township. And also, we support the clemency of Susan Brown. Susan Brown is our sister who is an international artist, and she also is a inmate at the Michigan Department of Correction. but she's an awesome person, and we're supporting her clemency. And so you can go, there's a GoFundMe for her. You can also go to this link tree, Clemency for Susan Brown. Click on that, go there, find out about Susan, her information, and support her clemency. As well as we also support Miss Diane at the voiceofdetroit.net. She has been doing this work on wrongful convictions for almost 30 years. I know it's over 20. But yeah, support her by going to www.voiceofdetroit.net. And also this weekend, Juneteenth for weekend celebration in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Our sister Trisha and others are throwing on a spectacular event this weekend. So join us at their event. I think it starts today, where it has already started. It started at 6, and there's something tomorrow on the 17th and the 18th. And we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us this evening on Turning a Moment into a Movement.